message to the billionaire class: you can't have it all.
Hello and welcome to the Evolution of Now. I am your host again, Aubrey, also known as Tensai Badger. And joining us today is Jordan.
Hello.
And I think Michael's here. Are you able to talk this time, Michael?
You think?
Well, last time I called your name too early, so I thought I'd switch it up this time.
Okay, fair enough.
And I think... Oh, go ahead.
No.
Okay, and then Chris is here too, I think.
Always last, of course, but
Always
best,
last,
you know.
Yeah, something like that.
Definitely the best.
Saving the best till last, except, you know.
Oh.
That's what
well,
it
in
is.
that case, Chris, I think you've got a story for us, so we're going to start you off first.
Oh, jeez. But, yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about a little bit of a news phenomenon right now. Omarosa has come out with a new memoir of her times dealing with Donald Trump and the kind of person that Donald Trump is behind the scenes. Now, according to her and her new book, she's basically saying that Donald Trump is, wait for it, he is a bigot, a sexist, and a racist. Whew, couldn't have seen that one coming.
That's crazy.
I know, right?
Wait, didn't she, know Trump before he became president?
Oh, yeah. She worked, she was on the Apprentice show that Donald Trump ran and everything. She was one of the contestants at one point. I believe she's even worked with him, maybe even before that, too. But
so she would have known him pretty well before agreeing to work in his administration? Is that correct?
Yeah, it's weird. It's so strange that this person, would somehow...
So she wasn't offended by it before, but now she is?
Yeah, now that she's out of the White House and not part of their staff anymore, now all of a sudden, when she was in the White House, she would defend the president and his ilk and, laying cover for him. And she was, I believe she was the African-American outreach for the Trump administration, even though she knew he was a racist and who would say the N-word multiple times, which apparently was caught on tape or caught on mic at some point. So who knows? Maybe there's actually more tapes out there now too. There's the P tape. Now there's the N-word tapes that are going to come out. What else is there?
I mean, I heard that a producer of for the first 2 seasons of The Apprentice said, in the wake of Donald Trump saying grab him by the he said that Donald Trump has said there's tapes out there of Donald Trump saying way worse. So,
I'm sure,
That doesn't surprise me.
Someone like him is definitely going to have said worse.
Frankly, him being caught on tape, calling black people racial slurs, I don't think that's really going to change his supporters' view of him. In fact, that's only going to make them happy, probably.
In fact, that's why they voted for him.
Isn't it? Or at least the people that are still with him, I should say. I do think that probably the 2/3 of Republican Party that didn't support Trump in the primary but still voted for him in the general election, I think probably about 2/3 of them just really fucking hated Hillary. The rest of them, they love Trump. So,
Yeah. There's another part to this, though. Apparently, she's also claiming that he, before he was inaugurated, he talked to her and asked, Omarosa, what do you think about me getting sworn in on The Art of the Deal, his own book about success in business? And she replied, instead of the Bible? And he's like, yeah, The Art of the Deal is a bestseller. It's the greatest business book of all times. It's how I'm going to make great deals for this country. Just think how many copies I'd sell. Maybe a commemorative inauguration copy. And she apparently...
No reason not to, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean...
I've got to be honest. There's a lot of things in this book I'm looking at thinking, she may have made that up. Because
I wouldn't put it past them really to joke about this. I don't think it's as serious as she's trying to make it out to be here, because she does go on to say,
we know she's a sellout liar. So
yeah, and there's nothing that says that people have to swear in on the Bible. People just do that because that's generally what people consider to be the most sacred.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It wouldn't shock
Trump
me.
Trump thinks that his own book that he had somebody ghostwrite for him is more sacred than the Bible. I don't care.
All right, Badger. Question for you. What would you swear in on?
Ooh.
Oh. Probably a cinnamon roll brought in from Bergie's.
Lame.
Fair enough.
Hey, they make the best cinnamon rolls.
Fake
That's a local
news.
restaurant.
I don't know.
A local coffee shop, I should say, actually.
What about you, Mike? Who would you get sworn on?
University Physics by... I can't remember who it's by.
Really?
It's my University Physics textbook.
Rand McNally.
I mean, mind you,
whatever it is.
If I really wanted to piss off Christians, and particularly my family, I'd probably swear in on either God is Not Great by Christopher Hitchens or
The God Delusion. Oh, no.
That's the one. Richard Dawkins' book. Yeah. I was in there and I was like, it has something to do with God. And I was like, the God myth, the God. I couldn't remember. Yeah. So not that I think those things are like sacred or anything. But just that would majorly piss people off. And there's something in me that just would really, really enjoy that.
You're the bad guy.
I know.
But yeah, I just wanted to at least end this off, though, with this Omarosa stuff. And there's one good part out here that actually looks good for Trump, just saying, because I actually applaud Trump for this. According to Omarosa, the president calls Betsy DeVos, the education secretary, behind her back, apparently, Ditzy DeVos, and he also calls Jeff Sessions, Attorney General, Benjamin Button. So, I mean, those are some good insults. So, I'm actually pretty cool with those. I think they were pretty funny. So, I'll give him props for that.
Hey, what can I say?
The guy treats everybody around him like shit, and he's proven over and over again that he has zero respect for people that work for him. Is anyone surprised that he denigrates people that he's supposed to have a great relationship with?
To be honest, I think she saw the success of Fire and Fury and is going, I want some of that.
Basically.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, true.
There's also allegations that he was also comparing Jeff Sessions to Mr. Magoo, too, for a while, too. So that's pretty good. It's pretty good stuff. I'll give that to Trump.
That's so good.
Okay.
But
it is amusing when they attack their own, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is.
It's kind of like... It's why I really don't expect this populist right-wing wave to actually outlast Trump himself. I have a feeling it's going to end up crashing and burning after Trump's out of office. Whether that's in 2 years or 6 years, I don't know. I expect them to sort of do a little bit of crashing and burning unless they get incredibly lucky and have some incredibly smart political maneuvering to save face.
Yeah.
So
it's just like with this though, like going back to this Omarosa thing, it just sort of like this whole thing is just hollow, like what she's been accusing here and everything. Because I absolutely believe most of what she's saying here. It's just hollow because of the person she is, and she is an attention grabber. That's what she's been doing for a long time. She was on reality TV for a reason, and she's worked in the administration for a reason. And it was all just for attention. And this is kind of one of those things as well. It just feels to me, at least. It's sort of like Elon Musk doing something good.
And then there's also...
It just feels hollow.
There's also attempting to, not just attention, but profit.
Mm-hmm.
Because someone like that, they're definitely in it for the money.
Certainly.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, she can make a lot of money off selling this book and all the interviews and stuff. I mean, it's going to get her a lot of attention, but it's also going to give her a lot of money. And that's ultimately, I think, what she really cares about. And same thing, with the Fire and Fury thing. I expect most of that was done for money.
Yeah.
Not out of any journalistic integrity or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, you really do have to question the motive, especially of a lot of these like conservatives who, like these conservative pundits or conservative I don't know, mouthpieces that, that come out with books, or like D'Souza, who comes out with films. Like, that is a legitimate, I guess, market for them to tackle, that they could, despite them saying the most outlandish shit possible, even Alex Jones, it is a very formidable, it's a worthy market to get as much money as possible in. And they do.
There is a legitimate, you can make a shit ton of money if you happen to be any kind of minority and you come out and you attack your own, basically your minority group. You know, in any way, shape, or form, whether that's, shitting on people within your age bracket, like millennials, or shitting on, your skin color, your gender, etc. There's a lot of money to be made because there's a lot of people who want you to come out and say that. But there are also plenty of people. Yeah, there's also plenty of people who do genuinely actually believe this stuff, and they're like, hey, I can make a lot of money saying stuff I actually think and believe. So, there's crossover.
Yeah. To be honest, the functional difference between someone who's simply selling out their group for money, but doesn't actually believe it, and the person who does believe it is cashing in, functionally it's the same thing.
Yeah,
certainly. Yeah,
and there's no way to really gauge someone's intentions or actual personal beliefs.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, we do have to kind of treat them about the same.
I'll be a straight white male selling out other straight white males. Loading me that.
I think that's called white knight.
Isn't white knighting when supposedly it's guys who are feminists?
Yeah, it's basically the idea is you attack other men in order to get in good with the feminists and in hopes of getting laid or whatever. But there's also plenty of women who call all male feminists white knights and treat them all the same.
I think the original term came from the idea of there's going to be this this dashing white dude to come and save you. It's I think.
Yeah, it's another aspect of the savior complex. We've got the white savior complex where the day always has to be saved by by a white person. There's kind of like this idea of a man has to come save the women.
Right.
Yeah. Kind of like the white liberals.
We've had the damsel in distress thing for a very long time. It's all about that.
It's
the white knight is always the good guy in a lot of things, and the guy in the black armor is the black knight, and he's always the bad guy in these classical stories and everything. So I guess it would come from that.
As a slight tangent, white liberals is my term for liberals who pay lip service to the idea of tackling racism, but try to go about it by imposing a solution upon black communities, which in itself is kind of dehumanizing, rather than empowering black communities to essentially fix their own problems. So, for instance, addressing things like the wealth gap, addressing different rates of home ownership, simply getting minority communities out to vote, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than, as opposed to things like reparations, where we're simply going to give a lot of people money and that's going to fix it. It's white liberalism. It's my term for white people who try to fix things by top-down imposition rather than by empowering the oppressed group.
And that's been the solution of charity. That's the basis of charity is we're going to go in and fix the problems rather than actually, help people, by giving them a bunch of things. But in the end, they never ask people what they actually need or want.
The problem fundamentally is there's a power imbalance. And so white liberals are the people who want to try and fix it, but don't want to address the fundamental power imbalance.
And in the process, they never actually give those who are in basically those lower spheres of the economy or society any actual power of their own.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's kind of like when the Tories tried to do their outreach page run by 5 old white guys. It's just hilarious. It's you can't have a youth outreach page activate run by a bunch of old white people. That's not going to work.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure they know all about all the hippin' and hoppin' and stuff that the youths these days do.
Just chilling in Cedar Rapids.
Oh God!
And
Don't make me break that out.
in their purse and all that.
Pokemon. Remember, everyone said Pokemon go through the polls.
Oh, and
God,
tell us how your student loans make you feel in 3 emojis or less.
Oh my God.
Well, and I got pretty macabre pretty quick.
I'm just chilling in Cedar Rapids.
Oh God. Oh. How is it? Every time she opened her mouth, she just made us think that she has, yeah, never mind. I'm not even going to finish that. All right.
We should probably move on to the next story.
Let's move on,
week.
shall we? Michael, you're going to either lift our spirits or plunge them to the darkest depths. I can't remember which it is.
It's me. So, I found a story, and I know we've done an entire episode about this, but it's one of those things I kind of want to hammer on a bit. I discovered a story the other day. It was an analysis of how much carbon switching to nuclear would actually save. And the conclusion was that for a 1.6 gigawatt nuclear plant, which is a mid-range nuclear plant, it saves enough carbon. It saves as much carbon as the entire Danish wind farm fleet. So every wind turbine in Denmark is like the same as one nuclear power plant.
And do they, I guess, have a lot of wind farms in there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are quite a few.
All right.
Which gives you, I think, gives you some idea of the scale we're talking about. When I say things like the problem with wind power is scale, can't produce much power with it. This is my point. One nuclear plant is like the entire country of Denmark's worth of wind power. That looks like in terms of its environmental impact is that they calculated, compared to coal, one nuclear plant of 1.6 gigawatts, if you got that power from coal instead, the nuclear plants save 1 square meter of ice coverage in the Arctic per second of operation, which is, kind of insane when you think about it. Yeah, that's a lot. So every second there's another square meter of
being fair, that's a really weird analogy.
It is
though.
a little bit.
I don't know.
Yeah, counterintuitive. If I had to look at the source to
quantify in your head.
Yeah. So
a certain amount better on that, I think. But
when you produce carbon, it costs the Antarctic shrinks a little bit. A certain amount of carbon means a certain amount of shrinkage, and that's how they worked it out. So,
you're a certain amount of shrinkage.
So if you have
sad
nuclear rather than coal, it saves 1 square meter of that shrinkage per second, which is huge. Germany recently halved its nuclear power capacity, and they calculated that this saves 80 million. This costs 80 million tons of carbon each year that are pumped into the atmosphere that wouldn't be otherwise. That translates to 240 million square meters of ice lost just from that transition. And I say this not so much for like a discussion point. I don't know what you guys want to say about it, but just to get people's head the idea of scale we're talking about when we're talking about nuclear power, and how yes, it's really important, and this does have real impacts on the environment that we kind of need.
Because the wind doesn't always blow, the sun doesn't always shine. So you need to be able to have some kind of on-demand power. So if you're not using nuclear for that, that means you're probably going to be using some kind of fossil fuel, which means emissions.
Mm-hmm. Fossil fuels are the only one that can do it. Because if it's the middle of the night about 2 a.m., the wind's strongest at dusk and dawn. And of course the sun is strongest in the day. So if it's the middle of the night about 2 a.m., there's very little wind and there's obviously no sun. So,
yeah, I mean,
people say about tidal power, if there's no tide, then you need something where you can turn it on, and no matter what condition it is, it's going to work.
Yeah. It's hard for us to fully transition to just these renewable energies. Like, there are going to be days where there's no wind and no sunlight, and so that would completely defeat having like all the wind turbines and solar panels for an entire day,
what's more likely here is we'll have a huge storm front move through, so you have no sunshine the entire day.
And you have to stop your wind
You've got winds in excess of like 70 miles per hour, plus hail, which damages solar panels, so they then have to be replaced. So even though it's sunny the next day, you can't use your solar panels. You know?
Yeah.
And the wind turbines have to be stopped as well.
Yeah, so I mean the wind turbines have to be stopped for pretty much the entire day because it's too windy. And then, you know, so you're not producing any power at all during that entire day. Well, what are you going to do? Just shut off electricity everywhere?
Yeah. It's hard. Like, either one of two things would have to happen in the future. Either we would have to drastically lower the amount of energy we consume, and that would completely change everything that we do. Yeah, but like to like a degree though that is just unsustainable with our level of our economy and everything right now. It's just impossible for us to do.
We need to do both at the same time. We need to work at reducing our energy consumption, as we also need to work at reducing our emissions. And, you know, that's not just simply a matter of reducing how much power we consume. It's a matter of shifting to greener technology, which does include nuclear, at least as far as I'm concerned. You know, and, you know, also reducing, you know, getting the refrigerators that use less power, getting the, you know, I don't know, any appliance that uses less power, switching to more efficient light bulbs, stuff like that. That's one way to help reduce your energy signature on the, you know.
And things like domestic solar.
That too, yeah.
Domestic wind. It does reduce the strain on the grid.
That's a bit more difficult because that puts more of the onus on the homeowner, and most people just simply can't afford it. And of course, there's all the people that rent, but like me.
Yeah, that's always annoying. And
I have no choice what my landlord does with this property. So.
Though you see my point by that kind of distributed power generation is called, where the power generation isn't centralized; it's done out just on people's houses. That's one avenue to reduce the strain on the natural grid.
Yeah, but we're still talking though, like even with that, you know, that solar supplemental is just not going to be enough anyway. Still, you know, we need something.
Thing.
Yeah, and supplementing is fine. That's great. You know, I mean, if the more we supplement, the less we have to actually, you know, use up nuclear fuel.
We'll be talking about supplementing later, eh?
Yep, we will actually. Oh, or are we ready to do it now? Is there anything else we need to say on this subject?
I think as Jordan
did have a story, right?
I did, yes.
Did you?
Jordan's
I'm sorry.
It's okay, it's okay.
No, just ignore Jordan. Just don't worry about him.
I'm sorry.
Doesn't matter what he has to say.
It's been a long day.
So you just forget about me? No, I'm just kidding.
What a jerk.
Jordan's just here for the diversity quota.
Wow. Jeez.
Wow.
Holy crap, man.
Ouch.
Don't go away now.
Man. Here, I thought... Well, I'm here as the woman correspondent, right?
I'll be the token white guy.
Token female correspondent right there.
Token
female. Mike, you're here to make it sound smart.
Yeah, exactly, via the
accent. The accent.
That's always good for.
Science degree too, or something like that. But it's the accent that's important.
Yeah, he gives us an air.
Florida. How about that?
Oh, that works. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, Jordan. Go ahead.
No, I actually just wanted to, less of a of like a particular story, more just I just wanted to kind of mention that Alex Jones InfoWars is having a bad time. Actually, I believe it was last week, they were officially, their profiles on platforms such as YouTube, Spotify, which is interesting because they have podcasts, they run podcasts on there, the Apple podcasting app, as well as Stitcher, which is another podcasting app, and including the big one, which is Facebook. He has lost, all his profiles on those platforms have been banned officially, which only leaves him with a handful of other platforms such as Twitter, which he can't really, he can't broadcast via Twitter. and also his application, which oddly enough, despite the fact that Google owns YouTube, who banned InfoWars, and Apple owning their own podcasting app, which banned InfoWars, he's still able to peddle his application through their store, which has seen a surge, obviously, since it's basically the only place left to live stream his content. So
at least on a phone, anyway.
Yeah, mobilely, exactly. And but also just to top things up, this is, of course, a lot of people. I think there's a split down. Wouldn't necessarily say the middle, but on the internet, it seems like it is. There's a lot of people who are, no matter if they're right or left, they seem to be supporting the notion that Alex Jones should have these platforms to, free thought and free speech. He should be allowed to, the opportunity.
I think there's a worthwhile conversation to have here. Alex Jones is just a hate speech peddler, and he's just selling shit. So I have
conspiracy theories is his bread and butter.
Yes.
Yeah, but I've got to say, the social media platforms, the big ones, the Facebook, Twitter, and etc., they are fairly monolithic in our culture now, and being able to dictate what is and is not in the public discourse should be worrying to people.
Yes, that is true. However, they do ban individual profiles on a daily. So I guess the fact that it's at the scale, and that's honestly that's what took Facebook and YouTube so long to act. It actually took Apple. Apple was pretty much the it kind of led the pack, and then all the other tech companies went, okay, all right, we can do it now. But they essentially had these restrictions in within their policy agreements or their service agreements. YouTube in particular banned him specifically for I believe they have a policy specifically about cyberbullying, which pretty much, if you read it, is exactly what Alex Jones is doing on his channel. So yeah, there's that, and then there's also I think it was Facebook who actually has a hate speech. Interestingly enough, it's because they like to run around the issue of hate speech so much, but they actually have a clause within their agreement about hate speech, which aligns with the content that Alex Jones is peddling, which is enough to actually have banned his channel. So they had these on the books for years, except it's just a matter of when they decide to actually enforce it. And
No, I completely agree with the ban. It's just, as of yet, I don't think they've acted on it, as far as I know. But
they initially
the power to dictate public discourse should be disconcerting, really.
Yeah, and initially they just basically took down a couple of his videos, and then they finally just acted and banned him entirely. So that kind of makes me wonder, maybe they're like, oh, well, we finally we're just going to do this as a test, see if whether or not we can get away with it without too much backlash. Okay, we did. All right, we're just going to ban him altogether. And it's kind of that sort of, I'm not entirely sure how I feel about it, because on the one hand, I'm glad that Alex Jones' audience has been limited, because the man's horrible. But on the other hand, conspiracy nuts, they really want to believe there's some huge cabal, some mysterious force running the world behind the scenes, The
globalists are coming for me.
Yeah, exactly. And who does he always call globalists? The people running all the tech companies, the people running the media, stuff like that. And who just took down all his platforms? Those exact people. So he's going to use this to prove that he's right.
But what's
interesting, that's what makes me a little I'm not sure this was a good idea.
To be honest, that just confirms for me that he needed to be taken down, because
I know.
It's
right. Because that's
it's just it's kind of like with that story where Anonymous is starting to dox conspiracy theorists now or something like that, and these conspiracy theorists, like, they actually reached out to one guy and he's like, this just proves I'm right.
Well,
and I wear it with a badge of honor, and it's like, yeah, exactly. It just which, I oppose doxing on principle, because it's basically inviting people to bully others and harass them. And I do not approve of that because, there's any number of reason people can do that to you. So, and I say that as someone whose family probably would harass me if they knew that I'm an atheist.
Your parents would be doxing you.
No, my parents wouldn't. In fact, my parents actually they forbid me to tell anyone else in my family that I'm an atheist because they were afraid of how my family would react, how the rest of our family would react. And I'm pretty damn sure that my aunt, who lives about 20 minutes away from me, just south of the town that I live in, she'd probably be up here every day knocking on my door trying to convince me of Jesus.
Yeah.
You kidding me?
And I don't want to put up with that.
My family, my close family's not like that, but like I have one aunt that like when I did tell her about like how I am actually an atheist, she like started going like crazy on Facebook and like messaging me all the time with all kinds of like Jesus memes and stuff, and like she was like sending me like 3-hour long like clips from YouTube from some weird ass like Bible radio station or something like that, talking about the Nephilim and stuff like that, and it was insane. But
so
I think she finally gave up
because we just don't have it here. I don't know. There's probably some families, but it's not so common.
Yeah, but I mean, it's kind of like, so I come at it from that perspective where I'm like, if someone outs me to my family, I'm going to be looking at being harassed by people I know. So I oppose doxing for that reason, because I know what it would be like if someone doxed me for something that most people would be like, well, what are you afraid of? I'm like, no. People have legitimate fears, and I am against doxing.
Right. Sorry,
that's a side note.
Oh, no, for sure. Just to wrap things up a little bit, I know that also it's worth acknowledging too that, I mean, these are the same platforms that Alex Jones was able to get as notable as he is today. So
if they'd banned him from the start, he would never have even. I mean, they could have banned him, and nobody would have even known.
Right. Exactly.
One thing I will say to counter is a lot of people saying that it'll just push his revenues up on his website because everyone has to go to his website rather than go on the Facebook. And you've got to remember, Alex Jones isn't a media outlet; he's a teleshopping, and so people paying for his show is actually not his business at all. I'm not sure if he's even profitable. Where he makes his money is from selling stuff, and so just getting views on Facebook and stuff, limiting that massively limits his income.
Get your beta male vitality pills right here at Infowars.com.
But
basically.
Well, see, and that's actually it is going to drive up traffic to his website because he already has a loyal following, and it just means it's being concentrated in one area to find his content.
But also that it does cut off
but it reduces how many people are going to stumble across him on those platforms.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think the main idea is in the short term, this is actually great for him, but in the long term, it's actually really bad for him because he is going to lose revenue over time.
Yeah. And also, I mean, Infowars, the site itself. I mean, every website does have a terms of agreement or service.
Yeah.
And even Infowars does. And I have it right here. It says, quote, "You will not post anything libelous, defamatory, harmful, threatening, harassing, abusive, invasive of another's privacy. Hateful,
unless it's talking about crisis actors, then it's okay. It's fair game."
I know, right? Hateful, racially, ethnically objectionable, or otherwise illegal. You will not make threats to other users or people not associated with the site. If you violate these rules, your post and/or username will be deleted. Remember, you are a guest here. It is not censorship. If you violate the rules and your post is deleted, all civilizations have rules, and if you violate them, you can expect to be ostracized from the tribe.
All civilizations, they went with that line? Wow.
That was
just
straight
interesting.
from Infowars.com. So even he knows, he gets it, he understands.
He knows. Well, but he's going to ignore that part when it comes to him because he's got to get all those sympathy feels.
They had enough lawsuits at this point too, from some of the defamatory bullshit that they've put out there. So, but anyway.
Oh yeah, I don't know. I did see an article. I wish I had saved it about how his wife is concerned that this is going to make him more dangerous, or his ex-wife, I should say. I think she's particularly thinking of her children, but
yeah, I've seen that too.
Yeah, but I don't know. Who knows? We will see what happens. I have kind of mixed feelings about it, but that's more along the lines of part of me is worried about feeding their delusions of grandeur. There's some big global conspiracy against them. But yeah. Anyway, moving on to global conspiracies. So we talked a little bit a few weeks ago about the U.S. delegates' opposition to the United Nations World Health Assembly resolution to support breastfeeding. It was the breastfeeding resolution. And I think we discussed a little bit of kind of the problems with breastfeeding versus formula, but not very much. Because the thing is, I think we mainly mentioned how formula can be very dangerous in third world nations where you don't have access to clean water.
Sounds familiar.
And I kind of wanted to expand on that and actually talk about the entire discussion regarding breast milk versus formula, because there are a lot of very strong feelings about it. The Best is Breast campaign is something that the what's it called? WHO? I can't remember what that stands for.
World Health Organization.
Yeah, that's it. They really, really push the Breast is Best campaign, trying to push breastfeeding over formula. And the more I've looked into it, the more it's kind of had a lot of very harmful effects, particularly in first world nations, but also in a few third world nations for a few reasons as well. But basically, the Breast is Best campaign has resulted in a lot of so-called baby-friendly hospitals. I know we're all thinking, what hospital isn't baby-friendly?
Do you hate babies?
Apparently,
is this what it is, Aubrey?
A non-baby-friendly hospital is one which allows mothers to choose to formula feed their babies.
I think Aubrey just hates babies. I think that's what it is. I don't know.
I don't hate babies.
She just thinks they're tasty.
Yeah.
Exactly. They're very delicious. I love eating babies.
Wow. This just got
atheist.
disturbing really quick.
Well, come on. Like you don't have your favorite baby formula or breast. I mean, personally, I like mine puree. But come on, atheists eat babies. Remember?
It's a pastime for us,
Yeah. That's. I can't remember. I think it was on never mind. Whatever. I think it was for International Baby Day or something like that. An atheist jokingly said on Twitter to ask for people to share their favorite baby recipes.
Nice.
I don't know.
God.
It was funny.
Someone's gonna chop this up one day.
Yes, they are. That's
just trolling, guys out there. It's not real. Okay. Full disclosure.
That seems that any of us here are going to be famous enough that anyone would bother, but
I don't know about you, but I'm super famous already. I don't know.
Oh, really?
No,
you going places, are you?
Big league, yeah.
In New Jersey?
Yeah. Hey, some really famous people come from New Jersey. Cenk Uygur, New Jersey.
That kid from Stranger Things.
Yeah, there you go. He lives in my town, actually.
Yeah, that kid from Stranger Things.
The bigger kid with the hat and the hair and stuff,
Oh.
Yeah, that kid. He lives in my town. Bon Jovi, yeah. The boss is from here. I mean, come on.
Oh, wow.
Carry on.
Oh. You guys are going to give me another coughing fit here. Oh, God. Okay. Well, but anyway, basically, the breastfeeding resolution specifically affirmed commitment to the WHO UNICEF Baby Friendly Hospital Initiative, launched in 1991 based on the prevailing and seemingly ironclad breast is best mantra, framed around the internationally accepted code 10 Steps to Successful Breastfeeding, which is designed to increase breastfeeding initiation and duration. The initiative urges caretakers to give infants no food or drink other than breast milk unless it is medically indicated until introduction of supplementary food at 6 months of age. Even as controversy brews over whether the baby-friendly hospital initiative is actually helpful and may even cause unintended harm, more than 15,000 facilities in 152 countries and growing have earned the baby-friendly accreditation. Despite the baby-friendly hospital initiative's growth, the data runs counter to the prevailing breast is best doctrine, which overstates the benefits of breastfeeding and ignores the real-world harm of promoting exclusive breastfeeding, and ignores that in the real world, milk is being withheld from babies who need it in the interest of avoiding formula. So that's from a Daily Beast article about how the Breast is Best breastfeeding campaign is misguided. Because, of course, the thing is, there's many reasons why women can't breastfeed. One thing that comes up a lot in third world countries is, well, if the mother's malnourished and doesn't have access to good food, nutritious food, then the breast milk that she feeds her baby is not going to be very nutritious. And, there's a very real chance that the baby may starve to death. And in fact, that actually happens a lot. Also, plenty of women struggle to produce breast milk, as well as, other issues. Some women just struggle to breastfeed and produce breast milk in general. Some women's breast milk comes in slowly. I mean, what are you supposed to do? Just not feed your baby until you finally have enough breast milk? Which is why the counter campaign Fed is Best is kind of starting to really pick up steam, because people are like, no, you kind of need to be able to do supplemental feeding, to mix formula and breast milk. And of course, there's also a lot of looking down on women who pump breast milk because they literally just can't be with their baby 24/7. They have jobs or whatever. They look down on them because they're like, well, you're not feeding your baby, properly, because it should be, skin to skin contact in order for you to properly bond with your child.
You're not feeding it the way that I want you to. Therefore, I don't like you.
Yeah, basically. So, I mean, that's kind of there's a lot of stigma attached, it's ironic that, there's a lot of stigma looking down on people for formula feeding or for even supplementing. But at the same time, a lot of women aren't allowed to breastfeed in public. Or rather, they're allowed, but to the point where they'll even have the cops called on them. I think I just saw the Daily Show had a segment where they talked about breastfeeding in public, and these women had the cops called on them for breastfeeding their children at a public pool. Women are allowed to breastfeed in public in all 50 states. In Europe, it's not even controversial at all. But here, women are commonly told that they need to cover up or go somewhere else, go to a private room to breastfeed their child.
We are very much the Puritan society still that we used to be in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm. And this is at the same time as they're being looked down on if they actually give their child a bottle, regardless of whether or not that bottle actually has formula or breast milk in it. So, yeah. It's a very contrarian society we've built for ourselves. There are definite benefits to breast milk over formula. Formula is cow milk based, I believe, for the most part. So it's not something that it's not primate milk. It's not going to have all the same stuff in it that breast milk has in it. just simply based on that, because baby cows require different nutrients to grow than humans do, although a lot of it is the same nutrients, and they've managed to balance the formula. That's why they basically that's why you don't just go and buy, I don't know, like whole milk from the grocery store and put that in a bottle and give that to your baby. There's a reason why formula is different, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, they've managed to counteract that to make sure that babies are getting all the right nutrients. But there's also important colostrum, I believe is the term for it, maternal colostrum, which is basically it helps a woman basically lend her immune system to the child and get the child's immune system kickstarted. Because children are basically born without an immune system, an active immune system, I should say. Which is also part of the reason why vaccinations are super important, because it gets the immune system up and active and running, and protects them from stuff that they are actually going to come into contact with. But I mean, also there's part of those benefits. But of course, also any contaminants that the mother ingests, a lot of times is also going to be passed on to the child, such as in the 1951, they discovered that DDT was showing up in breast milk. So stuff like that, like pesticides and things like that, as well as heavy metals like
Metallica? Oh, wait, no, maybe not that metal. Not heavy metal.
like lead and mercury, which, because milk is, a woman's milk comes from stored body fats, which is basically stored throughout the entirety of her life. So, if she was exposed to lead paint as a child, that's going to be in her stored body fats, and she's going to pass that on to her child through the breast milk. Although a lot of that is actually typically received in higher concentrations through the placenta when she's pregnant and the child's still developing. So the actual amount of contaminants in breast milk is kind of negligible in that regard. Plus, these same contaminants often show up in formula milk as well, due to, let's just say, factory farms. As well as, it was only recently that we moved away from, what's it called? The type of bottles that like leaches stuff into what you drink.
BPA.
Yes, BPA. Thank you. Yeah. We've only recently moved away from BPA bottles, particularly for breast milk and stuff like that. Or not breast milk, but just for feeding babies.
I mean,
baby milk.
If you go to a store and buy a bottle, a lot of bottles these days boast that anyway. Most water bottles I've seen for a long time now too boast that and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's a recent thing though. After they kind of really realized, oh, this is an issue. But like the stuff that we were fed as infants, unless we were fed with a glass bottle, probably had BPA in it.
Yeah. And so the formula from back then was actually not as good as it is today either. Like that has also really come a long way over time.
They continually worked on fixing it. So.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. What was that, Michael?
Shock and horror. Technology gets better.
I know, right?
Unless Republicans get in office, then
yeah. So that's kind of something to note about breast milk, just about like the different contaminants and stuff involved. There's actually a very interesting scientific article about it that I'll have Chris post in the comments or whatever it's called. Description?
The description thing, yeah.
The description.
That's a good
there we go.
Word for it.
I'll have him put it in there. And then there's also the fact that people talk about how breastfeeding's free. It's not. It's kind of free in about the same way that kids are free. It doesn't cost anything to technically make a baby, but if you actually raise that baby, they cost a hell of a lot of money. So there's a lot of costs that come with breastfeeding that may not necessarily be in dollar amounts, but so I mean, like, as we talked about before, you feed the baby when it's hungry. Well, what if you're not there? What if you have to go to work?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you have to get a breast pump. Obamacare does give us breast pumps for free now, but they're a one-size-fit-all breast pump. And guess what? Not everybody's boobs are exactly the same. So you have to buy attachments. That's not free. To make sure it actually suctions correctly to the breast, because otherwise you're going to have contamination and spillage. That's an issue. I understand this might be a difficult conversation for guys to have.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Three guys just stare into space while Badger explains breasts.
Breasts, yeah breasts, those things, yeah.
Breasts. There's different nipple sizes, there's different breast shapes, different nipple shapes. I'm
a big fan of breasts, so I mean,
I'm sure a lot of guys that I've met are. I say a lot, not all.
Anyway,
I have met some guys that prefer penis instead.
This is totally not awkward at all yet. So
no,
let's
not
keep
at all.
Going.
Yeah, but
I need more vodka
well, I've got Bailey's. So I mean, so if you're gonna use breast milk, you're also gonna need bottles and stuff, which you'd also have to buy if you're gonna do formula. You'd have to be able to store it properly, make sure that it's sealed properly. Same thing with formula when you prepare formula, only unlike with formula, you can't store breast milk dry. It's going to take up a lot more volume. The volume is going to be more because you don't mix it with water, obviously. I've actually seen this personally when I worked at the nursery of the church that I used to go to. Yeah. You don't premix formula because contamination. But anyway, yeah. So
I suppose it makes sense in some ways.
Yeah, there's all kinds of risks and stuff. So, actually one lady, I was reading an article a couple months ago about this one lady who was complaining about the TSA because they opened up her formula packet. And then they're like, oh yeah, it is just formula. And they handed her back to her and she's like, you might as well just throw it away now. You just contaminated it.
Well then.
Yeah, so. But yeah, so.
Yeah.
That's one thing to consider. But I mean, so also, I mean, because that's something a lot of people don't think about when it comes to that. Plus, if you're, because it's very common. I mean, if you're going to have a baby, you should be aware that babies get hungry when they get hungry, and they want to be fed when they're hungry, which can be 3:00 in the morning. Which means if you're going to breastfeed, mommy has to get up and breastfeed. So that means mom's probably not going to get very much sleep. However, if you're formula feeding, you can take turns and daddy can get up and feed the baby and mama can continue to sleep.
No way. I don't know about that.
I know, right?
I don't think that's a good idea. I think
I think can because, of course, we all know that men should bear absolutely no responsibility for taking care of children.
Yeah, no, what?
Unless, of course, it's a case of I don't want an abortion. I don't want you to have an abortion, in which case men are able to have the ultimate say, right?
Oh, come on. This is America.
Oh, God.
Yeah. It is kind of silly.
That's another conversation I've had.
I think one thing that I was really curious about was about the physical contact that a baby receives through breastfeeding. But then deeper digging, I realized, or I cited so many. I noticed so many different just articles and just. I guess mothers speaking through experience about the contact that could also, similar contact that could also be made through bottle feeding. So I just thought that it was a more intimate experience with breastfeeding. However, I'm seeing things that are they're contradicting that. You'll get a similar experience through bottle feeding. It's just about the way, I guess just the process of actually embracing your baby. And coddling them while feeding them, the smell that the mom gives off, and just like that nurturing is.
Yeah, I feel like that would have more of an impact on the child. Like eye contact too might actually also be much more important than the contact that they get through their mouth being on the breast. I don't know.
Yeah.
Babies' eyesight isn't really all that good when they're born. So they really can't see more than about a hand away when they're first born.
So they're blind as bats then. Okay, never mind.
They're about as blind as me. How about that?
I mean, technically, we're all blind as bats. It's just the brain does a lot of back work.
Yeah.
Oh, whatever, Michael. You and your science.
Yeah.
Well, that's
your
why
sciencey nonsense.
I can't see straight because the brains haven't been able to figure it out yet.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, we are primates. It's the contact that's most important, and it's also equally important for dads to feed the baby too, because that really helps children bond with their fathers as well. Mm-hmm. Fathers who do not feed their baby in any way tend not to be as deeply connected to them throughout their childhood, and that's a tendency, of course, a generalization. But I mean, you get the idea, right? So.
From the father, breastfeeding might be a little bit difficult.
Well, obviously not breastfeeding, but
I'm just saying.
I mean, if you're determined not to use formula, you could easily just use a breast pump and have him feed with bottle feed that way, with breast milk. So I mean, that's something not to be underestimated. Is interacting with the children is actually much more important than some of the specifics like formula versus breast milk. And particularly in first world nations where we have access to modern medical care, and all that. And clean water.
Cleaner water in some ways,
Cleaner water. Yeah, in some places it's not very clean.
Unless you're American. Here in the first world, we have access to clean water. Over there, I know you've got problems.
If you're living in Flint, Michigan, I would not recommend bottle feeding. I would not recommend formula feeding, I mean. Okay, how about that?
Not so much.
Not
with the tap water, at least.
Water's not with the tap water. Probably not even with bottled water, because that stuff isn't even very closely regulated. You can get a lot of contaminants through bottled water. There is a strategy, because if you live in a place without clean water, and you're concerned about, and maybe like there's malnutrition in the area, or you're worried that you might not be getting all the nutrients that you need. One solution is actually to buy formula and then drink the formula yourself and then breastfeed, because your body will break down the nutrients and put it into the breast milk, and your immune system will actually filter out the impurities in the water. It's an interesting approach.
It's a strange way of looking at it. They're just using the mother's body as a filter, essentially.
Yeah, essentially. And in the same time, I mean, the mother's also getting nutrients. I mean, obviously there's a little bit of degradation because the mother's body is going to take some of those nutrients for itself. But at the same time, but of course, if the mother isn't healthy, chances are the baby's going to be less healthy. So one of the important things is keeping mom healthy so she can make sure that baby's also healthy.
So I guess when coming to like the bigger scope of this, breastfeeding versus formula, I guess like breastfeeding is better in some ways, but it's not like we should ever be shaming people that don't, especially when they're in the so-called first world and like the,
I mean, frankly, in New Jersey or here in Iowa, unless your water is like really bad and you won't drink it yourself, probably just breastfeed. Or, I mean, probably just, it's your choice, is what I'm trying to say. If you live in a first world nation and your water quality is okay, it's your choice, what's convenient for you, what works best for you.
Also,
there are health benefits for breastfeeding up to 6 months, but there is no significant difference between those who exclusively breastfeed and those who supplement with formula.
Yeah. Just don't be an asshole to other people as well. Don't go out there and start judging other people that don't do it the way that you do either, that's it's really crappy, it's never cool to do it that way, it's so just try not to do that, that's all. That's all I'm saying.
Don't be a judgmental asshole. You don't know their situation. You know, and furthermore, if you see a woman breastfeeding in public, don't make a big deal out of it. Just let her be.
Just leave it to
She's
her.
feeding her baby.
Right.
Don't be a creeper either. Don't just sit there staring at them either. That's creepy as hell, you know?
Don't make a big deal out of it. Just be glad baby's eating and not screaming its head off because it's hungry.
It puzzles me because like individuals, like people who call the police are like perplexed or, you know, by public breastfeeding, are like, it comes from a place of anger, which makes me like wonder, like, what has happened in your life? Like, what specifically are you angry at? The fact that it's a woman, the fact that it's a woman being nurturing to her baby, or the fact that it's just a woman doing something that.
Near as I can tell, for most people, it seems to be this idea of the breast being exposed in some way. And
it's naughty sex parts. Oh, God.
Particularly with the people who got upset about the women breastfeeding in the pool. They're like, our children are here. Our boys are here. They can see you. And it's just like...
Yeah, it's part of the human body.
You're telling me that teenage boys have... you know, are like upset by boobs. I mean, for anyone who's like hasn't hit puberty yet, I guarantee you they've probably seen their mom's boobs.
That was probably scarring to them, being honest, at least. You know,
they probably have no idea what's supposed to be so scandalous about, you know, bare breasts. And then as soon as they hit puberty, they're like, oh, I get it now. I'm gonna stare because I like those.
But it's so weird. Yeah, I suppose it's weird because I guess I feel like I don't even have like the proper context because like I don't know what it's like in your other European countries where it's just like widely acceptable. Like, how do these tweens or these teens think about it? Like, do they actually look at it in a sexual manner, or is it just like, oh yeah, there's two functions to this?
Well, mind you,
multiple functions.
Also plenty of topless beaches in Europe as well, and nobody cares. They don't stop and stare at boobs. It's not anything worth remarking on. Mind you, I'm saying in Europe in general, not in specific nations. As far as I know, I don't think there's any in the UK.
I think it's part of like the culture, you know, like if the culture like somehow like makes it scandalous to ever look at the breast, you know, then it might weigh on kids more to see these things, and they might be like, oh my God, breasts, like more, because the society sort of like dictates that to them, that's the way that they need to respond to it.
Breasts being exposed, and so therefore people react to it. Whereas in other places, like say France, they've got topless beaches. People go around wearing practically nothing. And it's not even worth even remarking on or, you know, paying any attention to, except, of course, when they see a burqa, in which case they freak the fuck out.
Yeah. I mean, you can even, like, talk about, like, a Muslim country where, like, they see an ankle and the men, like, freak out, you know? It's just, like
well, of
it's
course
ridiculous.
He couldn't hold himself back. You know, he saw an ankle. And it's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And see, and that basically, I think maybe putting it in that context where Europe looks at us freaking out over breastfeeding in public the same way that we look at, I don't know, Saudi Arabia freaking out over a woman's wrist being visible.
Yeah.
You know? It's
just different levels of Puritanism.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. What if my 13-year-old boy gets a chubby?
Trust me, he'll get one anyway.
I know.
He already has one, by the way.
Yeah. You'll see a weirdly shaped tree or something.
There was a gust of wind, and he has one now. So I mean, come on.
I know. Okay, all right. So this one I actually want to read. There's 3 different accounts of women who gave birth in what's called a baby-friendly hospital. And I kind of just want to read them verbatim and kind of get you guys' reaction. A mom delivers her second child at a local hospital and decides to try formula after her baby girl struggles to latch. She informs the lactation consultant about her decision to feed her baby half a bottle of formula and asks for a remedy for her sore nipples. When the lactation consultant suggests coconut oil, the mom expresses concern over her baby ingesting it while she breastfeeds. The lactation consultant responds with, "You already destroyed her gut by feeding her formula. What's it matter if she has some coconut oil?
That's
the same mom, who has now been up for over 24 hours, later begs the nurses to take her newborn to the nursery so she can get a few hours of rest. They tell her no, hardly check in on her, and as a result, she falls asleep while breastfeeding her baby. Thankfully, no harm comes to the child. I'm not saying the two are linked, but this mom is diagnosed with postpartum depression shortly after going home from the hospital. So that's the first account.
Well, that's fun.
So,
that's really
which, by the way, falling asleep while breastfeeding is actually incredibly dangerous because the mother could have easily rolled over onto the child and basically killed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're hella fragile at that age.
Yeah, and we're talking about a newborn at this point. Like, she just finished giving birth. So, yeah, that was extremely dangerous.
It's super weird. That comes from such a weird place where it's like you have dedicated your life to the
a consultant as well. You should know better.
Mm-hmm.
Totally, yeah. but for dedicated your life for the caring of for babies, and then there's a mother that you disagree with based on a certain practice, and so you go, well, then your baby can suffer too. That's what. I don't get it.
Yeah. So here's the second story. Another mom delivers her first son at the same hospital. During her pregnancy, she makes the decision to both pump and formula feed because she will return to work, her own business, soon after the delivery. While getting ready to feed her new baby, the nurse drops off a breast pump and tells her she probably won't be successful with it, gives her a log and some diapers, and tells her to write down when she changes and feeds him. The mom repeatedly asks for formula and is met with an eye roll from the nurse, who tells her she will bring it when she can get to it. Mom is in tears when her sister arrives at the hospital 2 hours later. She is so overwhelmed from the lack of care and the harsh treatment she experiences after requesting formula that she requests early release because she would rather fend for herself at home than stay at the hospital any longer. She tells me, as soon as I told them I wasn't breastfeeding, they pretty much wrote me off. The nurse told me that since I was supplementing, I should feed him every 4 to 5 hours. The first night home, he screamed the entire night because he was starving. When our baby nurse came, she told me he was supposed to eat every 2 to 3 hours. I felt like I was set up to fail before I even left the hospital.
You kind of are.
Yeah.
That's a great hospital right there. Jeez.
I know, isn't it?
Really good to their
this
patients.
Is baby friendly.
Yeah, this is here in the United States too, by the way. So yeah, not all nurses at this hospital greet their patients with eye rolls and judgment. Another mom delivers her third son at the same hospital via C-section. After delivery, her baby refuses to latch, so mom, with the help of her nurse, decides to pump and supplement with formula. Her nurse is compassionate, supportive, and helps the baby latch better than anyone else. She tries to be helpful and find what works for this mom of 3, no matter what that method of feeding might be. At night, mom asks the nurse to take her son to the nursery so she can rest. The nurse agrees and even feeds him some formula. But the following morning, after a shift change, a new nurse comes in looking annoyed to see mom pumping. The nurse tells her that no lactation consultant would have suggested giving as much formula as she did because it would make the baby extremely fussy. Mom speaks up and tells the nurse her son is the happiest he's been since his arrival because he isn't starving anymore. That she is doing what she needs to do because she has no interest in fighting with a screaming baby to latch when she has 2 other boys at home to take care of as well. The same nurse proceeds to take away his pacifier because if the baby wants to suck on something, it should be on mom's breast. Mom assertively asks the nurse to leave.
Great hospital.
Yeah, isn't it?
Good place.
Yeah, so basically, the hospitals adopt these 10 steps to successful breastfeeding, which include on-demand breastfeeding, no pacifiers or artificial nipples, and rooming in where mothers are no longer allowed to send their newborns to the nursery so they can get some much-needed rest and recovery. For reference, the author of this article, she delivered her son at the same hospital 4 years, it says almost 4 years ago, which was before they adopted the baby-friendly initiative. I breastfed my son right after he was born following an extremely long labor that ultimately resulted in a C-section. He latched so easily and ate for almost 45 minutes. I thought in that moment, wow, this breastfeeding thing is going to be so easy. It wasn't. I tried pumping in the hospital, but supplemented with formula often. I used a pacifier when he got fussy. I sent my baby to the nursery for a few hours each day, and every night where the nurses fed him formula so I could sleep. They did so willingly, without judgment, and checked in on me often. So basically, in those 4 years, since they adopted the baby-friendly initiative, it went from being a hospital that cared about the mother and making sure that she was okay, as well as the baby, to basically only caring about the baby, but really not even caring about the baby, seeing as they recommended essentially starving a child that wasn't breastfeeding.
Yeah.
Seems like there's just some really crappy nurses there. It sounds like,
that too.
I don't know.
But,
I've only got one anecdote from 27 years ago to back this up, but over here, it was kind of backwards. So when I was a kid, and I only know this obviously through being told, but my mum didn't produce enough milk for me, and she was told by her friends that you have to breastfeed. You can't use the formula. You have to breastfeed. It was when she went to the hospital and said that she's struggling with it, that they said, okay, just use some formula. But that's one account. So
yeah,
I can't speak overall, but it sounds to me like we're probably slightly better in that. I should hope so.
Yeah. The person who really put this on my radar is someone in the Facebook political group that Michael and I are both in. And she's been sharing a lot of stories about basically mothers facing a lot of judgment for either choosing not to breastfeed or being forced to supplement for many reasons, one of which is just simply not enough breast milk. And one of the things, and near as I can tell, there's just as many stories from the UK as there are from the US. So I think a lot of this comes from this baby-friendly initiative, near as I can tell. And, right now we've just got anecdotes, but people are really starting to fight back against it and say, no, fed is best, making sure the child is actually fed and, things like that. I've seen it. I can't find the article now, but I found one that was a particularly horrific story out of New York City. And, after going through all of that, she found out that it wouldn't have really mattered which hospital she went to because every single hospital in the area was so-called baby friendly. And she, when asking around, she found just as many horror stories from mothers that went there.
Yeah. It is unfortunate that there are going to be crappy nurses probably in most places too. It's hard to say whether that is this policy
the uniformity, or the uniform sort of shaming mothers into breastfeeding and shaming them away from formula and making them feel guilty and like they're bad mothers if they don't breastfeed or can't breastfeed. The way that seems to be kind of just uniform at all of these baby friendly hospitals,
but it was sounding
really makes me feel like it's in the training.
But it sounded like from some of those stories, there were some good nurses in there that actually didn't have a problem with it. But then there were other nurses that would come in and be like, yeah, no, you're an asshole for not breastfeeding or something,
My bet is those nurses that were very accommodating and helpful to the mothers are nurses that have been there longer than the Baby Friendly Hospital Initiative has.
Maybe. Or just better people in general.
Or better people in general.
Non-judgmental people,
I'd be wary of judging the nurses specifically.
Yeah, and I'm not. I'm thinking it's more in the training because of the way it seems to be.
Yeah, maybe. Because if you're training and you're told by your training consultant person, yes, it seems bad, but this it's better for the kids doing it this way. This is better for the kids. Then, because don't forget, you'll do procedures and stuff all the time that kids and mothers don't like, but you have to do because it's better for the kids. So this will be just another one of those things. I don't blame them so much if they're misinformed like that.
Yeah, and that's what. Given how all these stories seem to follow the exact same thread, where you basically have to fight with them to get formula, and kind of go down all this road where they make it as difficult as possible to formula feed, and they kind of seem to do it about all the same ways. It really does feel like a training issue to me.
So,
fair enough.
Do we know where this initiative has come from?
Well, it came from WHO.
That's bizarre because the WHO's generally on top of this stuff, and they seem to have made a massive fuck up here.
Yeah, I think it's probably just simply a matter of implementation,
or just a wild misunderstanding. Like it is worth asking. If you have a choice, is breast or formula better? It's a worthwhile question, but I'd imagine even the World Health Organization, especially the World Health Organization, would agree that fed is best.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but I'm guessing like what's happening is that what we're saying here was that
and mind you, it's also these training guidelines are drawn up by specific nations and their specific medical regulation bodies.
Yeah, but I guess the World Health Organization is saying it's preferable to breastfeed, and then these countries like America are then having these baby-friendly policies that are saying, okay, so therefore we should shame people, I guess, into doing this. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's
I
not
don't
necessarily
know
that the
that
World Health
part necessarily
Organization is
comes
telling
from
them to
the
do that.
WHO. It might just simply come from, I don't know, either from the Surgeons General here in the U.S. office, or maybe it comes from specific state regulatory bodies. Most of the stories that I've heard in the U.S. have come from New York, so maybe New York's training system and regulations are just particularly bad.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've heard some stories from the UK as well. I'm not sure if they came from. I'm not sure if they were Scotland or England or Wales. I don't think
Probably
they actually said.
Our as far as I know, our medical recommendation group, NICE, National Institute for Clinical Excellence, NICE. They, I believe they work across the whole UK.
Okay. Yeah. So it's a difficult thing to really tell how what was obviously something that was so well intentioned kind of got warped into this horrible, let's make the mothers as miserable as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. It kind of further makes me not want to have kids also, but I don't want to have to deal with this shit.
Pretty much. I'm sure it's no fun picnic either. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I mean, and having kids is not easy. It's easy enough to get pregnant and even fun to do it, from what I understand. Not really my thing, but it's actually going through the process of pregnancy, where basically you have what's kind of literally a parasite growing in your stomach. That's not really your stomach, but stomach region. How about that? That's very difficult on your health. And
yeah,
I mean, and when I call embryos parasites, it's not saying that they're bad necessarily, but
I think that's exactly what you're saying, actually.
Well, in my opinion, but the way that it works in mammals is essentially they basically take resources from your body and they don't really give you anything in return. That is kind of the definition.
And then they resent you for 20 years. It's terrible.
Well, that too. But I mean, it's kind of just. I mean, like, they even have to trick your immune system into believing that they are part of your body, and in the process weaken your immune system, because otherwise your immune system would attack them and basically destroy them.
I mean, that is actually
that's actually one of the reasons for infertility in some women, is that their immune system just simply isn't getting tricked by the embryo. So kills it.
Yeah, when women have more than one child, though, there are studies that I believe that show that, like, there are some things that do happen, especially to like male children. If I remember correctly, I've heard stories about like it in some ways. I don't know. I can't really explain it exactly.
It's not really. There's some ideas and. Maybe a little bit of circumstantial evidence that might support the idea that, the more children you have and the more boys you have, that the more effeminate the younger ones are going to be, or the more likely to be gay, I think is usually the thing they claim. gay or transgender sometimes. But it's not been proven. There's no real, there isn't even a correlation.
I've just heard about that at least. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, it's all circumstantial at this point. So, I mean, it's kind of, maybe we'll see. We kind of have to keep gathering data.
Yeah.
I mean, but there's plenty of only children who are transgender and gay as well. So, I mean, or transgender or gay, I should say.
Certainly.
So, I mean, that's not necessarily proof of anything. Yeah.
All right.
I don't know.
Yeah, I would have to look into studies on that instead. But yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll do that as a topic at some
any
point.
Questions on the topic or on anything I've said? Anything I need to woman-splain to you?
Definitely woman-splain us, please.
I feel like I've just been the person talking this whole time while you guys just sit there and go, oh.
That's interesting.
Well, with respect, it's not really a topic I can opine about.
Yeah.
But you're the smart one, Michael. I mean, you got the
you picked a great
accent.
topic to have with 3 guys, didn't you, Badger?
Yeah, well, I kind of just really wanted to talk about it, and
Yeah, it's fair. It's interesting.
Yeah, it is a very interesting thing,
and it demonstrates really how much like tradition and silliness is in medicine, which you think should be strictly evidence-based.
Yeah. So, I don't know. It's kind of just those are my thoughts. Of course, my personal opinion are if I really, really feel the need to ever have kids, I'll probably just adopt. There's more than enough kids in the foster care system. I might as well just help out someone who wouldn't have a chance otherwise.
More families do probably need to do that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of kids in the system.
The U.S. foster care system is bursting at the seams, and it has been long before we had the unaccompanied minors problem. Kind of flooding the system back in, was it 2014 when they started arriving at the border? And then now Trump's basically kidnapping children and not returning them to their families, and they're going into the foster care system. Yeah, and then just keeping the kids. And just popping them into the foster care system, which was, so yeah, that's, if anyone out there is in the United States and has any interest in becoming a foster parent, I'd say do it. Because they need more foster parents.
Yeah.
Well, they're going after legal immigrants now, aren't they? Anyone who's used, I think it was Trevor Noah actually pointed out that to make it a law where you have to get Obamacare, and now they're penalising legal immigrants for getting Obamacare.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, y'all got fucked.
Yeah, it's
certainly targeting a very specific type of immigrant.
Yeah, it's just, well, I mean...
Which type is that, Jordan? It'd be the white ones from Europe, I'm sure. The rich white ones from Europe, I'm sure.
Oh, God. Yeah, it's kind of like, well, there's been plenty of cases of actual citizens being rounded up and deported, and even just held in custody for months because, of course, you don't have a right to a lawyer. I believe the Obama administration was the one who successfully argued that in court, that they had no rights to a lawyer. And this also occurred, ICE was also rounding up legal, like actual citizens, and deporting them. There were a couple instances under Obama. I mean, this has been kind of a problem for a long time.
There was one case I was reading about where they grabbed a guy literally off the street one day. Says, do you have your papers? Like, well, no, I'm just walking to the shop. Just took him, deported him to Mexico. Mexico said, you're not Mexican. They deported him down to, I think it was Guatemala, next one down. And they said, who the fuck are you? They deported him back up to America.
No, they deported him back to Mexico.
Oh, right. And then somehow he ended up back in America.
Yeah, where his family finally found him. Because, of course, he didn't speak Spanish. He didn't speak Spanish, so he had no idea what they were saying, and he couldn't really communicate to them.
Damn.
Mm-hmm. And, eventually his family finally managed to track him down just as Mexico was like, well, what the fuck are we going to do with you?
Yeah. There was a story that I heard about that I'm not sure if this is the same one, but yeah, there was a guy that had like some mental disorder as well. So on top of that, he didn't speak those languages when he got deported. He was also like had a mental disorder of some sort. I can't remember what it was. And he got deported all over the place, and no one knew what to do with him. And eventually his family got word of what was happening because they had literally no idea he was out of the country.
Yeah,
they just thought he was kidnapped. They reported him as a missing person. Yeah, because they had
he was
no
gone
idea
for
what happened.
like weeks, and he just vanished one day. No word or anything.
Sounds like the same guy then. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that was probably him then. Yeah, U.S. citizen, born and raised here in the U.S. He just happened to look a bit darkish.
He literally pulled up in a van, grabbed him in, and took off.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
And his mental disorder made it more confusing for him. So he was like, okay, I don't know what's going on here. So he sort of went along with it. And, I think he even admitted at some point because they were grilling him and because he had the mental disorder, he was able to be persuaded into it,
Yeah, into admitting guilt or something.
Yeah, for something he wasn't actually guilty of. like being a certain ethnic background is a crime,
If I recall correctly, this all occurred during 2016.
Yeah.
I don't know, don't quote me on that because I don't know for sure, but I think that's a story that...
In 20...
It wasn't during the Trump administration, no.
Yeah, it was not during Trump.
Or 2015. Late on in the Obama administration, there was a justice who was interviewed. He was in a court case, and he said he was arguing that children should be able to represent themselves. And they said, well, you can't teach a child immigration law. He says, well, with a bit of patience, you can teach a child immigration, like a 3-year-old immigration law. And you're like, what? And this was one of a senior member in the Justice Department under Obama. So,
Yeah,
immigration has always been sold out as.
I've got an idea. Make the kid clean the bathrooms to get a lawyer. Make them work for it. Like we want to make our kids work for lunches. How about that?
Well, that was
cares about
the
Democrats can sell out to.
Well, it's still these assholes.
Yeah, the point is, Democrats aren't really squeaky clean in the matter of immigration. But certainly I think that's a topic for later. In fact, actually, I think we've got that coming up as a topic.
Yeah.
So
I have no idea how we got onto this. So
it's all right.
We were talking about foster care, oddly enough. So yeah. Anyway, any last words before we take you out to bed? God, cold. Never mind. Nuclear's best. All right, go ahead.
Okay.
All right. Anyone else?
No, I'm good.
Born in the weed. I've been learning French.
Yeah. You guys have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you next week. And our next topic is going to be ranked choice voting. We're going to talk a little bit about that situation, huh? It's going to be interesting.
Yeah. Be fun.
Well, you guys have a great week.
Bye-bye.
Have fun.
Happy too.